Hi, my name's AnnMarie, and I am your host for today's Second Act Mamas podcast, a place where the women in the second act of their life can come together to laugh and talk, pray, admonish about everything that this stage of life has to throw at you. So today's going to be a little bit different. I'm kind of
only women, or
so today's going to be a little bit different. I'm excited. Please help me welcome my husband, Austin. So usually what I do is I introduce my guest and then I start with some rapid fire questions and then we just kind of jump into the interview. But today I am going to be interviewed. In the second act of your life, it's just full of transitions, I feel like. And I feel like my life right now is just one big transition between perimenopause, launching kids, adult children, and now what we're actually going to talk about. So I'm going to hand over the reins to my husband, Austin, and he is going to lead the interview. So
I did not put together rapid fire questions.
That's fine. You don't have to do rapid fire.
Just like fancy date night or Netflix and chill. What are your questions you ask? I bet you probably don't ask Netflix and chill. But
I don't ask Netflix and chill. It's a little vulnerable.
I vote for.
I don't know what you vote for. We don't have to do rapid fire questions. Yeah.
So we'll just kind of hop in.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So what number podcast is this? Is this like number 10?
I don't know. So I guess it depends on when we decide to actually publish this.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. 10? Yeah, 10 sounds about right.
All right, cool. Good stuff. I have some notes. But, yeah, you always talk about me having a lot of careers.
Because you do.
I've had a few. But let's talk about you for a minute.
Okay.
You've had a few yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
And you actually started out, I have to check my notes, see what she was initially.
You don't remember?
I'm kidding.
Okay.
You started out as an occupational therapist.
I did.
Talk a little bit about what that was like as a single woman coming out of college, first career.
Sure.
Type of thing.
So, he's right.
Say it again.
He's right. So, I'm older. Clearly. So when I was in school for occupational therapy back then, it could be a bachelor's degree. Now it has to be a doctorate, which I don't want to offend fellow therapists, but that's ridiculous. Anyway, so I got my bachelor's in occupational therapy and I had to do 6 months of clinical work postgraduate. I did my first 3 months in North Carolina, which is where I met my husband, and then my second 3 months in a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, I got into OT because it just kind of fit me. At first I wanted to go into medical school and then I don't know, I didn't really feel like called to that kind of, I've always wanted a family with kids, and not that doctors can't do that, but I wanted more flexibility than that. Anyway, so I volunteered in a clinic, at an OC clinic, and it fit me, whatever. And it was great. It provided independence. I immediately left home, did not look back. And I just met him, and I mean, our relationship in the beginning was a little bit rocky because I wasn't being very kind to him, but I knew I wanted to marry Austin within a month. So I finished graduated, finished all my clinical work. He moved out to Ohio and I followed him. So, and it's never hard to find a job as a therapist. It was a good career. I did it for 20 years on and off. We lived abroad a few years. And then, with kids and stuff, it was mostly PRN, but the money was great. The hours were great. Flexibility was great. So it was a good fit for me.
Yeah, for sure. And then she'd be following me to Ohio. Then I pieced out. We got engaged. I moved to Connecticut and let her plan the whole wedding, all that stuff. And I just came back to Ohio to get married, and then
picked me up.
Then we married a few other places. Yeah, we lived a few other places.
Picked me up, and then we moved to Connecticut, and all places. So yeah.
Anyway, so talk a little bit about how that worked for you as an occupational therapist, moving into married life, and then as a mom. what did that allow you to do? How did that work? You kind of mentioned PRN, but
Yeah, so the great thing about nursing too, therapy is that there's never a place where you can't find a job, right? Like it's super. It's I mean, if you look hard enough, it's pretty easy to find a job, and the luxury of it, if you get kind of like bored or restless or whatever in one like field, then you can just switch to something else. Um, so in the midst of my therapy, I treated anyone from 18 to 100, right? I never did pediatrics because that literally is a very different profession. But yeah, so it was great. It lended us solid income. And with the kids came around, I continued to work, but it was all PRN stuff. So I made more money an hour, but you didn't get any benefits. But it was great. I could still work and um, bringing money to the family, but then I didn't have to worry about not being able to be home because I always wanted to be home with the kids. So
I was back too when I actually worked W-2 jobs that had benefits.
it's been a long time since we had benefits.
Yeah. Well, how important was it to you that you were able to work in a career that allowed you to also be very active in raising your kids?
Yeah, it was critical. I didn't want to do, I couldn't see myself. I always saw myself foremost as mother, especially when I became a mother. It was always wife, mother first. Therapy, like as years went on, like went down the ladder a little bit. But like I said, it was a great profession. We moved a lot. It was never hard to find a job. PRN rates are pretty lucrative, so it was good. I never wanted a job that I didn't have flexibility. Flexibility in like kids came first, so that's where therapy was a great fit for me.
Cool. So, you moved out of that. Do you want to talk a little bit of why you got out of healthcare, or leave that for another?
No, it's fine. I'll briefly. So, like I said, I practiced for about 20 years, and a few years before I decided to retire, I started a baking business, a home baking business called Glad and Heart Bites and Bakery. I love baking. I love cooking for people. It's a passion. So, I was doing it consistently, and then my husband was like, "Well, why don't you actually like get paid to do this? Like, why don't you turn it into a business?" So I did, and then I was doing both, and I just I love my patients. That has never been the issue. I loved treating geriatrics. I loved being invited into their space and their stories and things like that. But everything else I was just over. I was over being micromanaged. I was over health insurance dictating how I'm supposed to treat my patients when they had no idea what they were talking about. Anyway, I was over it. So one day I went to my husband. I was like, "So how do you feel if I just do baking and not therapy?" He wasn't 100% on board with it at first because the money was much better therapy, but he loved me and saw that I was unhappy, so he let me. So, yeah, I officially retired 5 years ago.
I mean, you're probably before that, but yeah, you let your license go.
Yeah, I think it's been about. I think 4 or 5 years that I've I let my license lapse. So in my mind, that's my official retirement.
That's a burning the boats.
Burning the boats. That's right. That's right.
Cool. So you mentioned Glad and Heart Bites and Bakery. Where did your excitement for baking and cooking come from?
I don't know.
Because when we first met, she wasn't the best cook.
So here's the thing.
She wasn't that into it.
So here's the thing. I'm one of 7 kids, so a big family, and you would think that like being a part of a big family, you just learn certain things along the way, like how to cook. I didn't. My mother didn't really like cooking. She did it out of compulsion, like she had to, right? She had to feed her family. But it wasn't like something fun for her, so it wasn't anything fun for her to teach her kids. So truly, I didn't know how to cook when we first got married. It was rocky, whatever. But I discovered this is so funny. But I started watching the Food Network, and it just immediately pulled me in. It was fascinating. I loved it, and then I just started. I mean, I learned all my knife skills watching Giada and Barefoot Contessa and Tyler Florence, and I just started doing it and I started loving it. And, once you learn how to follow a recipe, you know, and then you get good feedback. Like he was like, "Oh wow, this is great." And then we had people over, and then I discovered I love having people in my home and feeding people. So hospitality became a really big part of the fabric of our family. Um, yeah, so it just kind of morphed into that. So Food Network taught me how to cook.
So cooking, baking, you mentioned moving from the OT thing into your business, baking business full time, Glad and Heart. Bites and bakery with an IE instead, so it's extra cute.
It's cutesy.
Talk about that business a little bit. Like, I mean, we kind of talked about where it came from, but
yeah,
what have you learned along the way? What keeps you going?
So I discovered we've had to have a couple conversations of like, why are we doing this, right? There's not a whole lot of money in home baking. I'll just tell you that. So you have to have a passion for it, and I did. Like when you're a therapist, you knock on your patient's door and they're like, "Ugh, the therapist is here." But when I would deliver goodies, they'd light up. Like it was like it became infectious. Like I was seeking. Like I loved that I could do something for someone that made them feel so special. So yeah, so it was kind of like a ministry a little bit. It was a business. I'm not a very good business owner. So I just like making cookies. I don't really like doing anything else. So that was always a problem. It was always a little bit of a bone of contention because, he would be like, "Well, learn." And I'm like, I don't really want to. So it's never really been a lucrative business, but it's always been something that I felt like the Lord really called me to do, to love on people. So yeah, I mean, I got in front, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about like, I mean, I've always been pretty good at like time management and planning and all that kind of stuff. But like, running business, I mean, I did everything, right? So cooking, cleaning, planning, shopping, social media, marketing, like all of it. It was all on me. Billing. So yeah, so you just kind of figure it out.
Time management's important, and I'll just say it from my perspective. Well, mine's more on the cooking side, but on the baking side, I definitely saw where she had to be on it to get people stuff the day they've ordered it, fresh, all that kind of stuff, and a lot of time for the mishaps. Some stuff doesn't always go as planned. I know in y'all's businesses, everything always goes as planned, but it doesn't always happen.
My language might have shifted a little bit.
I learned some new words in my office over there when I'm recording a video or something.
So it's not fair. The kitchen is my office, and his office is right down the hallway. It's not quite fair. And I like listening to 90s hip hop, which probably didn't always work out when he was trying to run a business. So.
But you're respectful. We worked it out. But I know just for myself, when I'm trying to like cook a meal, gosh, I can't even like make the meat happen at the same time as the vegetables and everything. And except for Sue V helps with that a lot. But I mean, she is the master planner when it comes to that kind of thing, and she's got that nailed down. Actually kind of relates to something else. So last year, I don't know if you know this or not, but you published a cookbook.
I did.
You published your first cookbook last year. Talk about how that came about.
So, like I said, hospitality has deeply ingrained into the fabric of our family. We both love it, and we're a really good team. Like now we just know each other. Yes. Yeah. Now we just know each other's roles, right? Like we do it a lot. We have people over a lot. We have a lot of parties. It's something we both enjoy, which is a blessing. It's not something like I do and I just make him do. Anyway, so for about a year, I guess, we did a supper club, which was so fun. Highly recommend it. I want to do it again. So once a month, a different couple would host, and it was themed. And I loved it. I had so much fun doing it. We're super relational too, so it just fed everything that I loved. Being in relationship, being in friendship with people, doing life with people over yummy food. I loved it. So anyway, so we did that, and then, living with him every year is like, okay, what are we going to accomplish this year? Like, I cannot go through a January without being like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Come on, let's go. So Anyway, so a couple years ago, my goal was, okay, I think I want to write a cookbook, and I think I want it to be about like hosting dinner parties, right? And I let the year go by. I didn't really do anything. So the next January came. The next January came, and I was like, no, this is I'm going to do it. So it took. I started working on it in January. I like started really like planning it, like the themes I wanted to do, and then the recipes, how I want it to look, the format, all that kind of stuff. And I'm fortunate enough to have a daughter who is very good at graphic design, graphic art, that kind of stuff. So she um, did all the artwork for me. She did all the formatting, the digital design aspect of it. I figured out how to self-publish through Amazon, and the book was ready by November. So I was able to like give it out as Christmas gifts last December. Um, yeah, so it was a super fun. I think I would love to do it again. I would definitely love to do another project with my daughter because she's super easy to work with. Uh, like deadlines are a thing, and I love that so much. So, um, but yeah, it was a fun experience.
So people out there right now, I know there's people out there that have wanted to write something, publish something, and gosh, it's got to be so daunting to look ahead at that.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that's thinking about publishing a book?
Any book or like a cookbook?
Any book. It's publishing something. Maybe it's a video series, an online training program, or just like going from zero, from idea to publishing something.
So definitely have a passion for what you're writing about, because publishing a book is like, I don't know, 5% of it is the actual content, and the rest of it is like publishing and editing and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really even do any of the big stuff that like a lot of like publishers do and stuff like that. So make sure you're passionate about it, because it's going to be in the nitty gritty for the majority of the time. And just enjoy the process. Like every once in a while, kind of take a look, like, oh wow, I'm publishing something, like that's pretty fun. I had no intention of it like making a ton of money or whatever, but like it was a goal that I had set and then I accomplished by the end of the year. So I was pretty proud of myself for that.
Yeah, I'm all proud of you.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yes. You said you lost a year because 2 years ago you wanted to do it and you didn't do it. What role did self-doubt or imposter syndrome play in that?
Gosh, the whole thing. I mean, that's exactly why I didn't do it. Insecure. I'm like, there's a gazillion cookbooks. What would make mine worth publishing, doing, like noteworthy, all the things. Like I just kind of talked myself out of it. And like I said, you were a pusher, but I needed that little push of like, I almost needed that like worry of accountability, like, oh, the question's going to come up again in January of what I'm going to do with my life. So, yeah, I kind of just try to push away my fears, and like in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a huge risk, right? Like it did, like our financial situation didn't depend on whether it was successful or not. So like I just kind of outweighed the pros and the cons, and it was something I wanted to do. So I just decided to put aside my insecurities enough to be able to like do the work.
Excellent. So guess what? 2024 is winding up. What have you done? I'm just kidding. Gosh, you've done. So this year you set out to do podcasts.
Yes. Okay. So that was my goal. Yeah. So that was my goal. Last January was if you watch this podcast, you know that this whole podcast journey was birthed out of my own struggle of midlife, of like, what the heck's going on? No one's talking about it. Is this normal? Is this not normal? I feel like we have to deal with so many big things all at the same time. Anyway, so I kind of pitched the idea to you, and we troubleshooted it a little bit of what exactly it would look like. You were super on board with how niche it was. And like I said, I have a super supportive husband who, if he wasn't involved in this process, it wouldn't happen. Because, like, yeah, I like the fun stuff. I like the interview and the content, but I don't know how to do anything else. And I don't really like anything else. So I don't, it's like a, it's like a block. Anyway, so he's the one that handles all the editing, all the publishing, all of that. So, so thank you. Thank you for letting me do again something that was like
Niche or niche?
so I think if you the French way is niche, but American is like niche. I don't really
And
care.
if
I'm not
the riches are in it, it's got to be the niches because it doesn't rhyme.
it doesn't rhyme.
Unless it's the reaches are in the niches.
Yeah, that's dumb. Um
It is dumb.
it's dumb. I'd say, whatever. We're not French, so like why be act like we're French?
Croissant.
But,
oh, did we answer that?
I don't know. What was the question?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
What's been your favorite thing on hosting the Second Act Mamas podcast this year?
My favorite thing has been I have been completely honored and overwhelmed that women in my life, some I know well, some I don't know really well at all, have allowed me to be invited into what I feel is like a sacred space of vulnerability. Like I've had women on lots of different like seasons of life, like midlife up, lots of different topics, some lighthearted, some not. And they have just allowed me to hear their story and publish their story. And it's been truly an honor. Like I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about this whole stage of life, which is the whole point of why I launched it, was to learn. Yeah, it's been a really cool, it's worked out better than I hoped.
Who's your favorite interview so far?
Shut up.
Who's your favorite kid?
Who's my favorite kid? Yeah, so it's like, and I only do once a month because I knew myself. Anything more than that would be overwhelmed. I knew I would get overwhelmed. But the Lord has just been super kind and like, say I'm down to like 2 in the hopper, right? So I'm like, okay, I got to do another interview. And I usually do 2 at a time. I usually batch it. People will just come up and I'll see them, like literally I'll see them in the grocery store or whatever, and we'll just talk. And I'm like, do you want to be on my, and they say yes. So it's just been really cool how that's kind of happened. Some of it was planned out in the beginning, but most of my interviews has kind of been the Lord kind of bringing people into my life spontaneously, where I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be great on this show. Like, it's perfect. Anyway, so that's been really cool.
Cool. What is a challenge that you've hit along the way in the podcasting?
Being utterly aware that if you weren't helping me, it wouldn't be happening. That's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little like little nick on the ego a little bit. Like, I just don't get technology. Like, it's like a switch never got flipped in my brain. In fact, now I don't get it. Like, it's not intuitive for me. I get frustrated. I can't, whatever, it's a problem. I'm working on it. How about that? I'm working on my technology issues. So knowing that, like, I'm truly dependent on you.
So I've thought about it a little bit, and my first reaction to that, and I probably, hit you with this kind of stuff before, is like, if you really want to learn how to do it, there's just ample stuff out there to learn how to do it. But in fairness, like you mentioned, you say, just follow the recipe. It's easy. Well, I mean, last year I made you a strawberry shortcake for your birthday.
Yeah.
I followed the dang recipe, and well, it was dense. You just put it that way. It was good. It was good enough. You liked it because
I ate it.
You didn't have to make it, and you hate it or you ate it.
I ate it.
Okay, good. But you know what I mean. Like, you're very experienced and gifted in that. It comes to, just having done it so much, things make sense to you. That when you're building computers and doing tech for so long, I think it just comes naturally. So I'm glad it will help in that little way.
Yes.
But you can still learn a little.
Good, I know.
But
I know.
Well, I was going to ask you how you overcame that, but
I mean, why lie? Like,
so what's next on the horizon? You are going to school again.
I am.
What's that all about?
So, it's been a few years of like kind of praying and thinking about just feeling pulled to go back to school. And when I first started thinking about it, it was to get my master's in counseling. Um, the Lord has just always brought people into our lives, typically not always just me, but our like marriage life together, to just come alongside and counsel and advise and mentor a lot of people in our life. So it has been kind of like just a natural part of how we do life with people, um, in church and outside of church. So in thinking like that, I'm like, yeah, I think I could definitely do this. So doing some research on how it would be possible, like for like online school or whatever, talking to a few people, and then, this whole idea of life coaching kind of kept coming up, and I really didn't know anything about it, but kind of doing a little bit of research there, and then I discovered, I don't know how I didn't know this, but one of my one of the people that I love dearly who have mentored me, who critical in my gospel awakening and growth, is Raina Cherry. She runs Coach's Honor. It's a para ministry here. Anyway, so she's been my mentor for a long time. And she probably a couple years ago went to school to become a Christian life coach. And I don't know how I didn't know that. I just didn't. So when I discovered that, I started talking to her about it. Like, what is it? What do you like about it? And she kind of went through the same dilemma of, no, I was thinking about going to get my master's in counseling, but talked to some counselor friends, and they were like, I really think this is a better fit for you in your season of life and what you like to do and how you like to interact with people. Um, so in talking to her, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me research that. I researched the institute, the online institute that she got her schooling in. And then she rents space out from a man who runs a counseling practice in Neptune Beach in Florida. Um, and he was kind enough to call me and just like chat. He had experience hunting both, and I mean, he didn't really know me, but he was very kind. He gave me like 45 minutes of his time on the phone to talk about the difference, like the pros and cons, and he, getting to know me, he really is the one that helped me make the decision of like, I think life coaching is definitely more your fit. I think you would thrive in it. He was being very kind.
Okay, shout out to David Tolbert.
David Tolbert, yeah, that's right. Anyway, so he is really, that conversation is what really sealed the deal. And I mean, I had gotten into Liberty Online. I was going to start the program soon, like in September, for counseling. And then I just tapped pause on that, and I talked to an advisor at PCCI, which is the Professional Christian Coaching Institute. And I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. I think this is really where I'm called to be. So yeah, so I started classes in August. My first 15-week class will be done first week in December, and then I'll start my next 15-week class, or maybe 13-week, middle of January. And then it's like different stages. Like, there's, to get your associate coach, is those two main classes plus mentor hours plus 100 hours of paid, 100 hours of documented coaching hours, and 80% of that has to be paid before you can get your first license. And then it's like you get your ACC, then your PCC, then your MCC. It's all like professional master, whatever. So to get my first, it's like about an 18-month process, probably, if I can. So I need people to get to coach, to practice on. So if you want to be coached by me, look me up.
Yeah, well, that was my next question.
Okay.
So how do people get access to you if they're someone wants to coach with you? How do they make that happen?
So yes, I would love to talk to you. Send me a message through Second Act Mamas, and then we can set up a discovery call. And then
if it's on Instagram, that's it. On YouTube, we'll have to put in the comments. Check the comments. I'll put your number.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Second Act Mamas. You can send me a private message, but yes, on YouTube, you can do that. We can set up a time for a discovery call, and we can just chat. I can kind of tell you what I have to offer, what life coaching is, and we can kind of figure out if I'm a good fit for you. So, I don't want to niche yet, just because I'm learning, but I can definitely see myself more women opposed to like men, and more middle-aged women. But like I said, I don't really want to niche yet. Just knowing who I am and stuff, I think I would be able to serve females better than males.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, congratulations. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's a little nerve wracking. Like in the process of like classes and learning and stuff like that, I I've said this a billion times, but it's like you introduced me to this metaphor, but it is a great analogy. Um, like a novice and an expert have the same level of confidence and skill, and it truly is like, how hard can it be? Like famous last words, how hard can it be? And like in learning the whole coaching mindset, it is very different from what I, not necessarily from what I thought, but from what I'm used to. I think in my conversations in that nature, it has been more in like a mentor, counsel, advisor kind of role. And coaching is not like that at all. It's all about drawing out what they already know, like drawing out their inner wisdom and stuff like that, partnering with them to like from where they are to where they want to be to where God wants them to be, right? So it's all about like future focused goals, desires, fulfilling those desires. Yeah. So it's been cool. It's been a cool process. It's been a little humbling because I'm like, oh, maybe I'm this is harder than I thought. So but that's good. It's good to stretch and learn and grow.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And anyone coaching with you is very lucky to be coaching with you. So I recommend her 100%. Stamp of approval. Gold star. Cool. Well, that is all I have. I don't know how you close this. This is Austin from Second Act Mamas making your special day sweet.
It's combining Glad Heart and Second Act Mamas, but that's fine. It's kind of cute.
So that's it?
Yeah, sure.
That's it. End it.
You
don't have like a tag, like an X.
No, what I usually do is like thank the person for coming on.
And you call me to Austin, come shut off the camera.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Right. Anyway, but thank you for being willing to do this.
One more. Yeah.
Again, I'm kind of dependent on you, so like I appreciate your willingness.
Being on the camera.
I am, yeah, very thankful to be able to do this with you and that you are willing to do this with me. So thank you.
All right.